So turns out 2022 did give us a fourth animated Pinocchio movie after all, huh? Pinocchio is in this movie, and Jiminy Cricket is a running gag as well. Huh, who'da thunk it? And speaking of who'da thunk it, who'da thunk we'd not only get a sequel to Puss in Boots, a movie that came out way back in 2011, but everybody is saying that the sequel to Puss in Boots is actually amazing. Not like better than they thought it would be, or just pretty good. No, like amazing. Genuinely an amazing movie that just might be in the top 10 or even top 5 of the studio. Puss in Boots 2 is seen as on par with movies like Shrek 2, How to Train Your Dragon, Kung Fu Panda, and maybe even The Prince of Egypt. Puss in Boots 2 is on the same level to those people. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. You know I may be a little sick still, but screw it. I'm going to a matinee to go see this movie just to dispel this silly myth. No way on this God-given earth is Puss in Boots 2 that good. No freaking way.
2 hours later.
It's actually even better than what they've been saying. Like, yeah, no fooling, no hamming up for the video like I would normally do. This movie is actually amazing. I know, I'm just as surprised as you are. Puss in Boots 2. Are you kidding me?
Holy God, what are you showing me? Hey, come on! Open your eyes!
I mean, who even asked for this movie? What die-hard fan of the first movie was begging for this movie for 11 years? I've actually never even seen the original one, but from what I've heard, it's fine. Like, it's a perfectly okay film, but not one that really warrants a sequel. And yeah, I get it, they're bringing Shrek back. But you figured they'd just release Shrek 5 and not even worry about Puss in Boots. But I'm so glad that's not what they did. Because believe me when I say this, everything about this movie is great. The animation, the characters, the themes, the comedy, the action, the world building of fairy tales, just freaking everything. To quote Goldilocks in this film, everything about it is just right. Everything about this film is surprisingly well balanced and well paced. It never feels like we're wasting time on any unnecessary character or location. And you'd figure that would happen since there's like 10 different characters in this movie, but no! I think everyone gets just the right amount of screen time. From Puss having to deal with his own mortality, to Goldilocks dealing with the conflict between what she wants and what's right in front of her, to even Death. Holy shit, let's talk about Death. If I had to pick which one was my favorite villain from this movie, it would hands down be the wolf. Like, it's crazy how good of a villain he is. I love how they play him straight in this movie. He is not a joke by any means. I love how he just pops into the bar whistling that tune, pretending to be a weird fanboy at first, but the moment he brings out that wanted poster, the atmosphere changes almost instantly. His vibe changes instantly. Suddenly we're taking him way more seriously, and he hasn't even done anything yet. And when that first fight starts, holy shit, is he just a monster. From the animation purposefully cutting frames to give him his own unique style, to the insane use of red, this guy goes on to establish himself as an absolute tour de force in less than a minute. From the chilling vocals of Wagner Moura to his perfect design. I mean, just look at this wolf. Look at his eyes. The way they perfectly shine in the dark and then turn to white when the lightning strikes. Just, Jesus, this is peak character design. He is just so genuinely frightening and menacing throughout the whole movie. And the fact that this is a movie for kids, it is just so cool to see a villain in an animated kids movie that isn't afraid to go the extra mile, that isn't afraid to scare the audience. And yeah, he is scary. He is a monster. He is Death. And I don't mean that metaphorically or rhetorically or poetically or theoretically or any other fancy way. He's Death. Straight up. And having him chillingly stalk Puss the whole entire time, whistling that haunting tune every time, causing Puss's hair to stand up, his heart beating faster and faster as he inches closer, ready to take his last life. It's truly gripping every time. Watching Puss actually have a panic attack in the middle of a fight and run away in order to calm down, it's something you don't normally see in movies like this, especially if they're for kids, but it's very welcome. I like how surprisingly mature and dark this movie goes, not just in the humor department, but in the themes. The whole story is about Puss confronting the fact that he is on his last life and death is literally around every corner waiting for him. And it's really touching and profound to see him embrace that life and the new people he's found along the way on this life. Again, it's insane, right? This is Puss in Boots 2, and yet the main character, who is supposed to be mostly a gag character in the Shrek films, suddenly has this really great and well-developed story about mortality and valuing the life you have and the loved ones you've earned along the way. If you had told me about 18 years ago, when Puss in Boots first showed up in Shrek 2, that he would suddenly become perhaps the deepest character in the entire Shrek franchise, I would not believe you. I also wouldn't understand what that means because I was like 10 at the time. Goldilocks and Three Bears are also really good antagonists. They're all just really fun and charming characters who, despite being a dangerous criminal family who aren't afraid of beating up old ladies, they have a great family dynamic with each other. I like how they're all kind of just dorks who have stupid songs that they sing to each other and fun little in-jokes, like how Goldie wants everything to be just right. That's really clever, I like that. There's even this really tender scene in the middle of the movie when they go over the story of Goldilocks, which you don't need me to tell you what that story is. Everyone knows what that story is. I like how it also ties in with the theme of appreciating what's in front of you. There's this great message about found family and not letting the past define you when it comes to her story. They're just an all-around great family unit. I would love to see more of them in future installments. Maybe even get their own movie. I'd be down to watch that. If I had any issue with her story, I think it does resolve just a little too quickly. Not to mention it happens on the side during the big climax, and I think that makes it feel just a touch rushed. And then they're just kind of in the background during the rest of the fighting, and it's a little awkward for the most part. But that's honestly just a nitpick. There's still a really satisfying payoff to it at the end, and it's really heartwarming nonetheless. And then you got Jack Horner. If I had to pick which villain I thought was the weakest, I would definitely pick him. I think he just had the least presence compared to Death, who was just way more intimidating, and Goldie, who is just way more emotional and complex, but he's still a pretty good villain nonetheless. If anything, he's the funny one, and he is pretty funny. You know, in a if you laugh at this, you're going to hell kind of way. The way Jack kills people in this movie, and yes, people are killed in this kids movie, is just so barbaric, but also so hilarious. He literally shoots a guy in the ass with a unicorn horn, and he fucking turns into confetti. That's both insanely dark and incredibly funny. There's tons of dark, gratuitous death in this film, and a lot of that comes from Jack Horner's hands, and it's all because he just can't get past the fact that Pinocchio was more popular than him when he was a kid. See, that opening statement wasn't a joke. It's actually plot relevant. I like how it also ties into the themes of the film, but where Puss and Goldie are able to overcome it and become better people by the end, Jack is just an irredeemable bastard. He's totally cool with how many people have to die just so he can get what he wants in the end, which is just to become a super powerful being. And being a spoiled, rotten brat? Yeah, that sounds about right. Again, he's pretty good on his own, but when compared to the other two, I feel like he is noticeably weaker. But with that being said, the fact that this movie is able to juggle 3 different antagonists and it all comes out as well as it does is a truly remarkable feat in its own right. Every character in this film is just really likable and charming. Even the dog, who I thought for sure I was going to despise by the end of this movie. I really wasn't that fond of him in the marketing of this film that I saw, so I was really not looking forward to him being a part of this movie, but to my surprise, he's actually a pretty likable character. He didn't really annoy me that much, and his backstory was both really funny and really sad. Like, good God, it was so sad. Why are you still wearing the sock, puppy dog? Find you some new clothes! The story is really fun and imaginative. I love how they go through this magic forest that actually changes depending on who's holding the map, which leads to some really inventive action sequences and great animation. Like, I don't think you need me to tell you this part, but this film is fucking gorgeous. This is the second movie DreamWorks released this year that utilized that Spider-Verse style. We really should find a better name for that. But the movie really found a way to make it its own style. The way the colors pop in the background and how everything looks like it was painted with a brush. Kind of like an old fairy tale book, which is genius when you look at it like that. And the fight scenes, oh, they're just so fun. From the opening with the giant, to the battle with the baker's dozen, to really any scene with death in it. That's when the animation soars, baby. And it soars high. I know I already gushed about it, but literally any scene with death in it is just top-notch animation. The angles, the use of color. This is a villain that can only exist in animation. And it's here in this realm that he is at his absolute greatest. If I was judging this movie based on just death alone, it would easily be a 10 out of 10. I'm not joking when I say that. He really is one of the best animated villains I've seen in a long time. I really don't have much else to say about how I would improve this film. It really is, for the most part, a really flawless experience. I guess like I said earlier, Jack Horner is easily the weakest of the villains, but that's not to say he's bad. He's just a pretty good antagonist, going up a really great sympathetic antagonist, and just an absolute tour de force villain. It'd be pretty hard pressed for most villains to compare to Death of all people. Outside of those small things, this is just all around a fantastic film. With incredible animation, great characters, including the best villain I've seen in an animated film in years, a unique plot that really fits the world of Shrek, and a surprisingly mature story that handles its themes in a very smart, funny, and wholesome way. Again, I'm just baffled. The fact that we not only got another Puss in Boots film after 11 years, but it's actually a phenomenal film. Like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's actually my pick for the best animated film of the year. Yeah, Puss in Boots 2 is my pick for best animated feature. Even more than Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I know, I'm just as surprised as you are. I just can't stop gushing about how good this movie slaps. It's that good. Like, it's a 9, maybe even 9.5 out of 10 film for me. I only gave the Guillermo del Toro film like an 8.5. That's how serious I am. Now, do I think it's going to win Best Animated Feature? Absolutely not. It's probably going to go to Turning Red in the end, which is a good movie, but it's not even in the top 5 of this year. Seriously, how sad is that? That Pixar wasn't even in the top 5 of this year's animated films. But with that being said, that just means this was actually a pretty good year for animation. You know, all things considering. It's actually really cool to see DreamWorks bounce back like this. After watching them settle for shit like Boss Baby and Trolls and The Nine Realms, knowing that somehow makes money. Ugh. It's genuinely nice to see them release not only something of quality, but easily their best film since Kung Fu Panda 2. So even if it doesn't win an Oscar, not like that means anything, hopefully this movie at least is a financial success. That way, DreamWorks can keep making movies that, at the very least, continue to try and be innovative like this was. At least, that's what I wish for. As for what's coming next on this channel, well, I'd like to keep that a surprise. But I do want to take a minute to just say thank you for an incredible 2022. This year has truly changed my channel in a way that I never saw coming. Seriously, because of the support you guys have given me both on the main channel and on my Patreon, I can now officially call YouTube my full-time job, which is truly an incredible feat. After nearly 7 years of working, I can finally say that I made it. But don't think for 2 seconds we're done. On the contrary, we're only just getting started. I already have some big plans for 2023, and what better way to show that off than with a new banner! I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays, and I hope you stick with me for the biggest year yet. But until then, I will see you in the next video. So stay awesome, guys, and as always, rock on.
We pretend that time didn't pass us by when we're on Mulholland Drive. I know it won't